This is the Shoulda Bit More podcast, presented by Goal Boys Network. Here's your host, Will Hill.
Welcome to the Shoulda Bit More podcast, presented by Goal Boys. Coming up on the show, Matt Youmans of VSiN will join us. We'll go over the NFC and AFC title games as the conference championship weekend is almost upon us here coming up. Get his thoughts on maybe talk a little Notre Dame, Ohio State, put a bow on the college football season, some college basketball, some baseball. This is I mentioned once football winds down, and it is winding down, start to do some other things here is, between football, the end of football and March Madness, it's not as long as it used to be with football going almost until, it ended almost Valentine's Day last year. Then by the time you get to like March 1st, you're in those conference tournaments. So you just have a few weeks here where you mix and match, do some NBA, do some college basketball, do some baseball previews. And once March Madness gets here, it's heavy March Madness into baseball, into, NBA playoffs, NFL draft. And then you kind of, get back on track and the shows kind of speak for themselves and you have too much to do, but definitely entering that post football blues. But before we get to Matt here and get his thoughts on Chiefs, Bills, and the Commanders and the Eagles, the all NFC East title game, we will put a bow here just quickly on college football. Notre Dame, Ohio State. Notre Dame was game. Look, that was a competitive comeback. They started out the game with a long, I don't know how many 18-play drives you see. 18 plays, eat up most of the first quarter, touchdown. From that point on, it was pretty much all Ohio State till like middle of the third quarter. It went from being up 7-0 to down 28-7, and down 28-7. Ohio State gets the ball back in plus territory, and they had a guy wide open for a touchdown that would have made it 35-7. Doesn't hit. You don't really think anything of it at the time because it feels like it's about to be, name your score for Ohio State, basically score until they get sick of scoring 42-7, 49-7. That was looking like that kind of game. They missed the guy in the end zone. They kick a field goal 31-7, and then Notre Dame just kind of inches their way back into the game. A touchdown, a two. They get a fumble from Ohio State. They get some penalties. Ohio State gets a little conservative on offense, a little conservative on defense. Next thing you know, it's an 8-point game. By the way, Notre Dame down 16 tries to kick a field goal on 4th and 8. It was either 4th and goal from the 8 or 4th and 8. And then he missed a chip shot field goal, which kind of served him right because you have no business. 8 minutes or so left in the game. You need 16 points. No business kicking a field goal there. And then the game again is on 8 late, and depending on where you bet it, the line was 8, 8.5. I know some places it got up to 10 very briefly, but it looked like you were going to take a bad beat if you had Ohio State, because Ohio State, with 4 and change left, all he needs a couple first downs. They run out the clock, and they're not looking to score there, but they hit the long ball to Smith. They kick the chip shot field goal, and it lands on 11. So, boy, this past weekend has been a reminder, too, of, just when and where you bet things and getting the best of the number, whether it was Chiefs, Texans, landing on or around the number, depending on when you bet it, where you bet it. The Rams, Eagles, landing on or around the number, depending on when and where you bet it. And this one almost landed on 8. And even Bills, Ravens almost had that was between 1.5. That looked like it was possibly going to land on Ravens by a point as they were down 8, missed the 2 after they scored on one of those touchdowns and say, hey, get the ball back, get a field goal, and you're going to win this thing by 1. So an important reminder this weekend of, shopping and getting the best of the number. But not much to say other than, hey, give Ohio State credit. They had that embarrassing loss Thanksgiving weekend to Michigan. I don't think anybody would have sat there, that weekend. Not that it's a shocking development that they came back and rallied and won 4 games, but they looked pretty damn dominant after. They kill Tennessee. They absolutely embarrass Oregon. They take care of business against Texas, a game that probably could have gone either way. And then a pretty matter-of-fact win against Notre Dame. The one thing I will say here, and look, give Notre Dame credit. They fought back. Give Ohio State credit. I thought it was at least you gave us something to watch late. At least it wasn't, halftime you could turn off the TV and felt like you missed nothing. So at least it was somewhat competitive, at least in terms of the cover, if nothing else. But I'm torn on this because I'm all for stretching out football season as long as possible. Once football ends, it's just a bummer. There's no games to watch. There's no games to talk about, no games to bet. So I'm all for, hey, stretch football out as long as possible. That being said, there was a little bit of an element of, man, I keep forgetting the national title game is on Monday. I think a lot of people, unless you had Ohio State futures, unless you're a fan of one of these teams, it is a little bit out of sight, out of mind. I mentioned this the other day where it's like, these playoffs start that Friday night before Christmas. It's Indiana, Notre Dame, which was a great atmosphere, playing on campus at Notre Dame, Indiana, the upstart, all of that right before the holidays. But that's December 19th, December 20th. Then you play those games that weekend. Then you play like New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. Then you wait another 10 days to play the semis. Then you wait another 10 days to play the finals. I know you have the NFL to tiptoe around, and you don't want to play these games on like Tuesday nights and Wednesday nights, so it's not that easy to just sit here and say, hey, condense it, make it where it's less out of sight, out of mind. But it is an issue where I think a lot of people probably even forgot college football season still going on, that forgot there was a national title game. So not sure what the perfect solution is. And again, you're going to go to 16 teams here soon, so this is maybe it's just you need to get used to it. Maybe we're used to college football with the 14 playoff just ending a lot sooner. I wouldn't imagine they would shave games off the regular season, but maybe it's just something where, hey, you need to get used to this this format and these playoffs taking so long. But Ohio State is the champion, first title since 2014, and they hold up the trophy and win every game, cover every game. As this one got a little dicey, as did the Texas game, but they do win and cover every game en route to a title. And if you look forward to next year, it's they play Texas week 1 in Ohio State. They're laying 3. Some of these lines are already up. Notre Dame plays Miami, so it's a really good week 1 next year. Is obviously not gonna preview it yet, but it does make you feel good to look up and see the full board and see all the lines and see a bunch of great games early next season, late next summer. Where look, it's a long way away, but it'll get here quicker than you think. As far as the NFL, do everything full picks and everything Friday. I have a hard time picking against either home team. I could see Washington being competitive for most of the game, and they play these teams played Thursday night, middle of the season, and it was the same kind of game where Philly missed some kicks and it was close and it was close. Then late in the game, fourth quarter, Philly kind of pulled away with their running game, with their defense. I see a similar kind of game here, where maybe it's tied middle of the third quarter. Maybe Philly's up by 3, start of the fourth quarter. Then the running game takes over. The offensive line for Philly wears down Washington, and Philly wins going away. As good as Daniels is, as scary as he is to pick against right now, going into Philly, weather, quarterback, the crowd noise, all of that, the running game of Philly, the offensive line, I think Philly has a big time performance. Now, look, the case against Philly, Hurts is banged up, AJ Brown seems to be banged up, and the kicker is a disaster for Philly. So if you're saying, hey, there's a path here for Washington, yeah, there is a path here for Washington, but I'll go with Philly here. I think Philly wins the game. It might it's 7, 10, 13, and that's 7 to like between 7 and 14. I do think they win. I do think they cover. Part of me wants to pick the Bills. I just feel like they're due to punch through. Eventually, you play this game enough times. Eventually, you're going to beat them when it counts. And it's funny that the Bills always beat them in the regular season and just never beat them in the playoffs when it counts. And there is a Brady Manning element to this where Brady just beat Manning and beat Manning and beat Manning every time in the playoffs, every time when it counted, until one year finally Manning won. Now Manning got that game at home, and Manning was down 21-3 in that game and needed to come back and win. And then they go into the Super Bowl, they beat the Bears. So you figure at some point the Bills are due. I just, we had Parles on the other night and he put it well. I was like, until you see this team do it, I'm just going to pick Kansas City at home with the better coach at home, with home field, with Mahomes. And you got to factor in at some point, hey, Kansas City's probably going to get a call or two that is 50-50, whether it's a holding that's called or not called, whether it's a roughing. Kansas City's going to get the benefit of the doubt of these calls, and you can complain about it, or you can just say, hey, if I know they're going to get the calls, maybe I should just bet on them. So to me, Kansas City, I'll pick them to win a close game. Don't feel great about it. I do feel like Buffalo is due to break through and pick them off. And it would be fun to have new blood here in the Super Bowl, but until I see it, I'm going to go with Kansas City. So we'll do more of this on Friday. We'll get into these games in a little more detail. Have a guest on to break them all down. Just quickly on the baseball. Look, the Dodgers, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about this too, is in the next coming weeks. I can't get worked up about the Dodgers and just scream and yell at how could you spend all this money. The thing that annoys me is the teams that don't spend, and I've talked about this plenty of times. The Yankees not spending, these other teams, all these owners are billionaires. All of these owners can do this. They don't care about winning. They care about the profit. They care about making as much money as possible. The Dodgers say, hey, we don't care about the profit. We're going to spend. Now, we don't need Buster Olney, which he did after Sasaki signed. Well, the reason these guys signed with the Dodgers is the culture and the history of Jackie Robinson. Sasaki's not signing with the Dodgers because of Jackie Robinson. I hate to tell you, Buster, but that's not why he's signing there. But I can't kill the Dodgers for doing everything they can within the rules to possibly win. Now, you can tell me, hey, the deferred payments, that's skirting the rules. Something should be done about that. 100%. I would agree with that. That's a fair point. And maybe that is something that will be addressed. Maybe that's something that does need to be addressed. But as far as, hey, I've got the money to spend, I'm going to go get Snell, and I'm going to get Sasaki, and I'm going to get Tanner Scott. I think a lot of these teams are just, a lot of fans are just jealous. It's not their team that's going out to do it. And what I don't understand is the fans that defend their teams not doing it. It's like, man, you guys that go to the games, you spend a lot of money on tickets and parking and food and beer, and you're going to defend your owner taking that money and just putting it in his pocket, putting it in his wallet, and not putting it back into the team. Give the Dodgers credit. They're going out there and they're going to have about 46 starting pitchers that are pretty good. I don't even know how you whittle it down to a starting five. I know injuries and baseball takes its toll on the length of a season. I mean, you just read the team. It's just it's like two or three teams combined. It's just such an embarrassment of riches. It's to the point where it's ridiculous. But hey, I applaud them. I give them credit. And they're no lock to win. They almost lost last year. They could easily lose this year. You get into a best of 5, a best of 7. Okay, they got the best team, but that's not how baseball works. Where you're just automatically going to win. And these pitchers are all good, but these pitchers are all injury prone. There's some question marks with all of them. There's Glasnow or Snell. We'll see how good Sasaki is. I mean, any of these guys could get beat or get hurt, and it does make it fun to have a team to root against, to have an evil empire type of team. It's like that's what the Yankees used to do. I wish the Yankees would keep doing it because if you're a fan of the team, even as a fan of sport, hey, let's just stack our team and come beat us. I don't care if everyone hates us. I do think it's actually kind of fun and kind of good for baseball in a way. What I don't like is these teams that are just completely uncompetitive. These teams that just don't spend a dollar. I think that's what's bad. And there's never going to be a salary cap. People that want to scream and yell, hey, there should be a cap, a salary cap. The players never agree to that. If anything, there should be a salary floor. I would buy that, but I don't know. That's a discussion for another day. I have no problem with what the Dodgers are doing. I have a problem with these teams that aren't interested in winning, going all out like the Dodgers. And boy, if you want to feel old, I'm doing this. Is the Hall of Fame, I think, is about to be announced in the next hour or so. Some of these names, some of these guys that are eligible for the Hall of Fame, it just makes you feel old. It feels like they were just playing. CC Sabathia, Pedroia, Felix Hernandez, Troy Tulowitzki. I guess Sabathia is a lock for the Hall of Fame based on everything I'm reading. And by the time you listen to this, he's either going to be in or not in. So it's going to going to age one way or another. Boy, he had 5 years where he was top 5 Cy Young consecutively. He pitched forever, all the strikeouts, all the wins. So he's going to get in. I would think it's very likely either first ballot or shortly after. A 3.74 ERA. That is pretty shaky for a Hall of Famer. It really is. That is not like a typical Hall of Fame ERA. I know it's only one stat and he's got all the other counting stats, but man, he had some really, really rough years for the Yankees. After being dominant, he got there right away, carried them to a title, helped carry them to a title. He was great. And he had a couple good years after that, but he started to really fall off. 2012, 13, 14, 15. He had some rough years and still a situation where he was somewhat in his prime. So I'm surprised he's viewed as much of a lock as he is to get in. But some of these other guys, the one thing that drives me nuts, and hopefully he gets in, and again, by the time you listen to this, we'll know whether he is or not. Andrew Jones should be in the Hall of Fame. He is one that him not being in the Hall of Fame actually bothers me. I think they put too many guys in, but he is one of the best, if not the best player in history at his position defensively, and that's center field, which is an important position defensively. And he had 434 home runs. I don't understand how Andrew Jones is not a Hall of Famer. So I don't know, it drives me nuts. A lot of it, and it's literally a popularity contest of like, hey, did you smile? Did you get along with the writers? Were you a good quote? Ortiz is a perfect example of, hey, all these other steroid guys don't get in, but Ortiz was good with the media. He smiled. He was likable. So we put Ortiz in. It's just a lot of that, which drives you nuts about it. It really is. There's so many contradictions with it, but it does just kind of show you, man, the time goes by quickly because some of these guys that are eligible, it's hard to believe they've been done playing 5 years, Sabathia and some of these guys. So we'll see what happens there, but we'll talk to Matt Youmans next about the NFC and AFC title games, get his thoughts on some college basketball, some baseball. That is next. This Should Have Been More podcast. All right, Should Have Been More podcast. We are back, and he is back. He's our buddy, one of our favorite guests, does a great job. VSiN Primetime, VSiN.com, where you can catch all of his stuff. It is a great Matt Youmans. Matt, what's going on, man? Welcome back. Thanks for coming on.
Always good to be on the Should Have Bet More podcast, and maybe I should have bet more on the Ohio State money line last night. I was trying to hedge some Notre Dame futures, and I did get Buckeyes minus 190 on the money line, but I didn't bet quite as much as I wanted because at that point I thought, well, maybe Notre Dame's got a shot here. After that opening 18 play, 75-yard drive that took up 9:45 of the clock, thinking, well, if the Irish got this game plan and they're going to be able to drive it on the Ohio State defense like this, maybe they got a shot. I ended up betting more at Ohio State minus 270 later when I could kind of tell that it was going to go the Buckeyes' way. But pretty good game last night. Very interesting point spread result. How about that, Will? With if the Buckeyes just get a routine first down on that 3rd and 9, you're going to run out the clock, and it's going to be a 31-23 final. Instead, they hit for a 57-yard pass, right?
Yeah, and there were a few games this weekend. We only had 5 football games, but a number of the 5, whether it was Kansas City, Houston, the Rams and the Eagles, even Baltimore, Buffalo looked like it was headed for possibly Baltimore by a point that were going to land possibly right on the number. And boy, that would have been a bad beat if you had Ohio State and it landed on 8, but they pulled away. They got the field goal and it landed on 11. Do you think going forward, college football needs to just not have as much, needs to not have this drag on as much as it does, go as long as it does?
No, I wouldn't say that, because I love college football. And I think the more games, the better for us in our business. Bettors, bookmakers, you want more big games. And I'm disappointed. The day after the season, you're kind of depressed. You look at your odds screen, there's no more college football. And we're going to get that way in the NFL in about 1 week. We got nothing but one game to look forward to. And then, hey, I love college hoops. March Madness is awesome. We got golf majors and baseball season to look forward to. But I'm all for stretching out football season as long as we can. I think the football playoff is obviously going to go to 16 teams. I think that's where it's going to stop. Maybe shorten the regular season by a game. Do you really need 12 regular season games, Will, when each team plays one cupcake? Like D2 opponent or minor conference opponent, it's going to be a 45-7 game. You could go back to 11 games in a regular season if you want to expand the playoffs. The thing is, contraction never happens, because once you expand, it's all about the revenue flow, right? NBA does not need an 82-game season. I think everybody could agree on that, but you're not going to contract the NBA season because of the revenue that you get from season tickets and TV.
Or 4 playing teams. They don't need 4. We don't need the 8th,
Right.
9th, 10th seeds. I mean, we don't need the Chicago Bulls as a 10 seed, in some playing games. We don't need it.
I know. So I don't think we'll see contraction. You only see expansion, because everybody's trying to expand their revenue. And I'm okay with the way it is now. I think the way the playoff was set up was a big problem. You can't have Boise and Arizona State and teams like that getting a bye. So the playoff bracket's going to be set up. Hey, think about this too. Final thought on college football. If you had a 4-team playoff like normal instead of 12 this year, Ryan Day probably would have got fired, because Ohio State would not have made the playoff, right? Instead, you get a 12-teamer. Ohio State gets in, runs the table, wins 4 games. Now Ryan Day is going to be coach there for as long as he wants, or for the foreseeable future. But that's interesting to think about. After that loss to Michigan, if you don't have a 4-team playoff, Buckeyes don't make it, and Ryan Day probably gets fired.
It's a great point. I hadn't thought of that, but it's 100% true, and you're probably right. Let's look ahead to these NFL games. Eagles landed about 6 here. I wouldn't be shocked if same thing as last week, if this continues to trickle up. It opened at 4.5, 5.5, 6. I wouldn't be shocked if we got to 7 here. I know you're usually a dog or pass guy. Are you same here? Are you dog or pass in terms of this game?
I've got Eagles 16-1 to win the Super Bowl. I made 2 Super Bowl futures bets. One of them, very embarrassing. I kind of got a nudge from a buddy, Will Hill, saying the Jets this year. Gotta love the Jets. I bet the Jets at 30-1. I bet the Eagles 16-1. Those are the only 2 Super Bowl futures I played before the season. I'm not blaming you for the Jets, because I kind of liked them too, and I feel bad about taking the bait. Took the hook, and you feel like a sucker on that Jets bet. But the Eagles still alive at 16-1. Now with the Lions knocked out, I feel like you got a much better shot to get there. In the VSiN NFL preseason guide, I picked the Eagles over the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Bit of a square pick, but I felt like it was going to be a rematch from a couple of years ago when the Eagles had the 10-point lead at halftime, and Patrick Mahomes was limping into the locker room. Everybody's, oh, the Chiefs are done. Mahomes can't walk. And then he comes out and leads the Chiefs back to, 38-35 win or something like that, with a big second half. So it's not going to surprise me if both favorites advance here. But I'm thinking about playing the Commanders. I did play a teaser last night. We played 2 teasers over the weekend. One of them blew up because of the Lions. The other got there with the Bills and the Chiefs. But I played a Commanders plus 12, Bills plus 8 teaser last night because I kind of like both dogs, but I don't love the dogs. Here's the thing about the Eagles. Jalen Hurts in the last 2 games has passed for 131 and 128 yards. And he's got a bad knee. He couldn't move around much in the pocket at the end of the game. Rams rolled up 402 total yards against that Philly defense in the snow. Stafford passed for 324. Rams rushed for 111. You know, Nakobe Dean was missing a linebacker. And I'm not going to say that's the only reason why, but I didn't think the Philly defense was as strong as it typically was. Jayden Daniels is going to be a lot more dangerous, you'd think, than Matthew Stafford with his ability to get out there and run, assuming it's not a snowy field or a slick field in Philadelphia this weekend. So Daniels in his 2 games has accounted for 304 and 350 total yards in the playoffs against Tampa Bay and Detroit. I don't like betting on teams playing 3 consecutive road games. It's a really negative scheduling situation. You know, in this way it's set up. We've seen Eli Manning and the Giants do it though, right? Didn't the Giants won 3 consecutive road games, right? The last time Eli took them to the Super Bowl.
The first time they did it, they won 3
time.
road games. Big Ben and did it with Pittsburgh, so it's happened.
Yeah. It's not going to stun me if Jayden Daniels and the Commanders go in there and win the game. But I for now, I put it plus 12 on a teaser because I think Philly's defense is far superior to what Washington's got right now. And they're probably going to find a way, I think, to win a tight game. It's funny, this morning, Ryan Leaf was on the VSiN morning show with Super Dave Ross, and I asked Leaf, which quarterback do you have more confidence in going into this game? Jayden Daniels or Jalen Hurts? He said, Daniels, and it's not even close. So think about that, you know, how much confidence everybody's got in this rookie right now. What are you thinking?
I think that, and first of all, you deserve a ton of credit too, because I did shows with you all spring, all summer, before the draft, after the draft. You said the Bears are making a mistake. They should either trade down to 2 and draft Jayden Daniels, or just sit there and 1 and pick him. And that he was going to be better than Caleb Williams. Now look, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, who knows? But so far, it's that's a first round knockout. That is looking like the wrong pick there for the Bears. Boy, I just think going into that building, some weather, still a good defense from Philly, the crowd, the running game of Philly. I'd be surprised if Washington went in there and win. Philly went. I think they played on Thursday night, middle of the season, and it was a close game. And then Philly kind of pulled away.
Oh yeah.
And Philly's got some kicking issues too, which is something to keep in mind too. I see a similar game where it's close. Maybe it's tied. Maybe Philly's up a field goal. Then they kind of pull away and win by a touchdown, win by 10. I think Philly pulls away late.
Yeah, I could see that. I could certainly see that script. And Saquon Barkley is the difference maker, right? Because he's carried that offense when Jalen Hurts hasn't done a whole lot in some of these games down the stretch. So I kind of feel the same way, which is why I didn't bet the Commanders plus 6. You know, I could see, if you remember that first meeting in Philadelphia, like you were talking about, I believe the game was tied going into the 4th quarter or late in the 3rd, and the Eagles kind of blew it open in the 4th. And that is something you could see happening here as well. But that's why I put it up plus 12 on a teaser. At this point, I'll reevaluate it later in the week. Like last week at this time, all I heard were Ravens picks from everybody. And I said, man, if it's going to be like this all week, I'm going to be on the Bills by the end of the week. And I did end up on the Bills, even though I was leaning Ravens early in the week, like everyone else. But I played the Bills straight, and a smaller bet, and Bills bigger on a teaser, because I felt like that game was going to go to the wire, probably be decided by a field goal. This one, I think it's going to be tight into the 4th quarter. And like you said, the Eagles probably find a way with Barkley and their defense to win the game. So I don't know if I'm going to take the 6. Why do you think the number went up from 4.5 to 6?
Just think it's a little light. I mean, Philly's still a really good team. You got a Washington team now. This is going to be their 4th straight road game. So I think that's probably enough of a reason. When I saw it was 4.5 early, I said, look, I know everyone's excited about Washington right now and for good reason, but 4.5 seemed a little light.
Right.
What about the other game? It feels a little like, if you remember when Manning and Brady used to go head to head, Brady would always win when it counted, always win when it counted. Sure. Eventually, Manning finally broke through and they beat him to go to the Super Bowl, and they beat the Bears. Now, that game was in Indianapolis, Colts versus Patriots. But is this finally the time here where Allen breaks through, or or you just have to see it happen before you bet it? And let me ask you this too: does it factor into your handicapping? People complaining about the refs with the Chiefs. Do you have to factor that in? Do you have to count that into your handicapping now that, hey, the Chiefs are going to get a call here or two in this game, so be careful betting against them.
Yeah, I think you do factor that into your handicapping a little bit because you have to. We've been seeing it with the Chiefs for a long time. At the same time, I think there's a little bit too much whining from the Texans side about the officiating. Texans made a bunch of mistakes in that game. First of all, how do you leave Travis Kelce on a blown coverage wide open in the middle of the field for a 50-yard gain, right? How about the missed field goal at the end of the half where you set up the Chiefs with a field position near the 50? Why'd you even try that field goal? Before you even sent the kicker out there, I said, he's going to miss this, and you're going to give the ball to the Chiefs around midfield. The opening kickoff of the game, you let them run him back a long way. There was a bunch of mistakes the Texans made in that game. It's too easy to just sit back and complain about the officials. At the same time, I thought the Texans were the right side in the game, getting the points, and the Chiefs getting every call and every break in the game is just kind of typical with KC. It's a good comparison you make with Manning and Brady. Recently, late night on NFL Network, I was watching a replay of I think the Colts Super Bowl run. They were showing some, and that breakthrough that Manning and the Colts had at home in that playoff game against the Patriots. Some people probably forget the Patriots led that game 24-3.
Yep,
you recall that, right? How the hell did the Patriots blow that lead? That was a wild game, but that's what it took for Manning and the Colts to get over that Patriots hump and get to the Super Bowl. There's going to be too much made about the earlier meeting when the Bills beat the Chiefs in Buffalo, just like there was too much made of the first Ravens-Bills matchup last week. I heard a lot of people talking about, well, it was 35-10. It was a blowout. Why would it be much different this time around? That was week 4, all right? That was a long time ago, just like this first Chiefs-Bills game was a long time ago. I don't think there's anything relevant that you take away from the first meeting. It's a classic matchup of two gunslingers, Mahomes and Josh Allen, going to trade shots, and who's going to make the play or make the mistake in the fourth quarter, that's going to decide the game. I think that's what it comes down to. Also, one thing that bothers me about the Buffalo defense, you may have noticed this when you watch the Bills, they leave the middle of the field open too often. If you leave the middle of the field open like this against Travis Kelce, that's the guy I'm going to be looking at in props here. I don't understand how defenses can lose Kelce. The Christmas Day, the Steelers just left him open over the middle of the field time after time after time. Like, who's the brain-dead defensive coordinator out there? What are you doing? You can't blow coverages and leave Kelce open in the middle of the field. Oh, they're not going to throw it to that guy. Of course they are. Kelce's probably going to put up big numbers here, and I think it's going to be another one of those classic Chiefs-Bills games that goes deep into the fourth quarter where they're trading shots. I'd love to see. Here's the thing: I don't want to bet the Bills right now just because I want to see the Bills win. Right? It's kind of like, I want the Bills to win, so I'm going to bet them. Hopefully, it happens this time. That's not the way you want to bet. I don't have a lot of belief that the Bills are going to get it done. I talked to one of my trusted handicapper friends on the East Coast who's a big Bills fan. He's pretty good. He's got a good read on the team. And he said yesterday, I have zero doubt that the Bills are going to win it this time. I said, wow, zero doubt's a bold statement. Because how do you have zero doubt when you're going to Kansas City? But he's confident the Bills are going to get it done. I'm not sure the Buffalo defense is going to be good enough to close out KC in the fourth quarter when you have to. That's why I teased the Bills up to +8 with the Commanders. But tough call, Will. It's an awesome matchup, and I think one that we expected to see pretty much most of the season. Everybody thought it was going to be some combination of the Ravens, Bills, and the Chiefs at this point, obviously. And what's your thoughts here? I saw a couple of handicappers on VSiN giving out Chiefs money line at -130 yesterday. It's hard to make a case that the Chiefs are going to lose a home game like this, but like I said, I want the Bills to win. But that doesn't mean that's how you should bet it.
Yeah, from a betting perspective, I came on here Monday and said, hey, you just tease. I know you're supposed to tease college, but tease Ohio State with the Bills. And once Ohio State wins, you just come back with the Chiefs money line and you set up a nice little middle where you have the Bills +7.5 or +8. You have the Chiefs money line, and you know what? You put That's your good. Feet up and just have a beverage, have something to eat, just enjoy the game and hope it lands, Chiefs by 8 or less, which is extremely not likely, but possible. Yeah. Andy Reid versus McDermott. I'd rather have McDermott. I get the home field. I get Mahomes. Chiefs winning this game by a field. I'm at the point, like, until I see the Bills do it, it is hard to actually pick them.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, we've seen the Bills beat them in the regular season, but not in the playoffs. What's Allen 0-3 against the Chiefs in the playoffs? Is that right?
Yeah, and they beat them all the time in the regular season. It's very strange. Any feel on either of these totals? Both are at 47.5.
No.
Okay.
Sorry. Got nothing there. These I had somebody ask me about the total. Somebody texted me before kickoff of the Ravens Bills game and said, "What do you think of the total?" I said, "Well, I hate, first of all, I hate playing over 51.5 because 51 is such a key number in totals. And it's funny how the game fell 52. I said, I'll tell you what, there's no way I'm betting the under. So you bet the over or you pass. And that was my thought on that game. I similar thoughts here on Chiefs Bills is that I'm not betting the under. Not with these two quarterbacks. The fact that I think the Buffalo defense is going to be vulnerable to Kelsey, and they're going to have a tough time stopping the KC offense. I guess I would lean over in that game. In the Commanders-Eagles game, I really don't have a feel for that total at all. See, it looked like when you watched Rams-Eagles early, it looked like, this game's going to fly over.
Yep.
Then by the middle of the third quarter, this is going to be an under. And then it ends up going over the total. I could see this game, Commanders-Eagles, being the same sort of game. As far as the Bills-Chiefs, to me, it's going to be over or pass.
College hoops. A lot of people with football winding down will start to pay attention to it full time for the first time. Anybody that you think has value in terms of like the sleeper to win it all, or any team, I'll guess ask this way, any team you think is underrated right now?
You know, it's interesting because I played like 6 futures before the season, and Alabama at 20-1 is one of my better ones, even though Bama hasn't played to the high level I expected at this point. Duke, I got a 12 or 14-1. I like that one a lot. I really think Duke's got a great shot to win the whole thing. I know everyone thinks Auburn's the best team, but Johnny Broom's already had a couple of injuries. Broom can't stay healthy. That's going to be a big problem for the Tigers when they get to the tournament. I like Ole Miss. I think I've got Ole Miss too, a big number, something like 80-1 or somewhere around there. I think Ole Miss might be a bit of an under the radar team, but you're talking about teams that can get to the Final Four. And when you say a bit of a sleeper or an underrated type of team, you want a bet on a future. You want to bet a future on a team that you think has Final Four ability. I don't like hedging futures tickets before the Final Four. You don't want to get there. Well, if they get to the Sweet 16, I could start hedging. I don't like that stuff. I want to bet on a team that I think can get to the Final Four. And at that point, then you could hedge if you get a big number. Let's see. Trying to think. I'll tell you, the SEC's got 11 teams at least, maybe 12 that are going to be in the tournament. How many of those teams could actually win it? The ACC is really weak beyond Duke. I don't think the Big Ten has any top-end teams that can win the whole thing. You could say Michigan State's a bit of a sleeper, but when you watch Michigan State, they don't really shoot the 3-ball and play the style that I think is going to get them through the tournament. I had Gonzaga preseason at 27-1. That team's been a big disappointment so far.
Does UConn have a chance to get back there?
I think UConn has a chance when McNeely comes back. Liam McNeely's been out with an injury, just because I hate to underrate Danny Hurley. Don't want to sleep on Danny Hurley as a coach because he's so damn good, especially when you get to March. All the teams that are unfamiliar with UConn and their style of play have a tough time matching up with them in March. I just don't see the playmakers, the top-end talent that UConn's had the past 2 years. I don't see it on this team. Do you?
No, definitely not the level team. They don't defend as well.
St. John's. St. John's a sleeper. That's one.
40-1. That's one that I had in mind.
Yeah, I think I've got 60-1 on St. John's that I bet like a couple months ago. Would that qualify maybe?
Absolutely. 40-1 is absolutely a sleeper. And just looking in this neighborhood, UConn 20-1. And this is just one bookshop round. Tennessee at 18-1. Maybe you have to see them do it before you actually believe. But I think St. John's at 40-1 is a good one.
Yeah, Tennessee's not one I'm going to tout. I was talking about when Tennessee got to number 1. There's no way that's a true number 1 team in the country. Yeah, that's just the stupid way the AP poll operates. When the team loses, you got to shuffle everything around. It's a game of musical chairs. And when a team loses, they have to drop 5 spots, right? And that's not the case. Auburn lost to Duke. You don't have to drop Auburn 4 spots because Auburn lost to Duke, and Duke had 15 more free throw attempts in the game. Auburn has been my number 1 power rated team since middle of November. Now, Tennessee has not even been close to that. Tennessee was ranked number 1 for 3 weeks, but I don't think the Vols are good enough offensively to get there. And like you said, that's kind of a you want to see it to believe it sort of situation too, with Rick Barnes getting over the hump. But I thought last year's Tennessee team was better with Dalton Connect. I thought that team definitely had the potential to get there, but they ran into Zach Edey in the Elite Eight and got stopped. But I thought that Tennessee team was better. I'm gonna go with St. John's as my sleeper for right now.
I like that one. Last couple before we get you out of here. How many wins for the Dodgers, and does this? What's your just general thoughts here on them basically getting every player under the sun lately?
Well, they defer all this money, and that's the way they're making it work. It's crazy with these deferred contracts. Do you think that's going to force some sort of change in the system of how the deferrals work, and so the Dodgers can spend all these billions?
Probably. It will probably not be allowed going forward, I would think.
Well, I would say the answer to your question is not just the starting rotation when you look at it, because the rotation looks phenomenal. If Sasaki lives up to the hype, which might not necessarily be the case, you never know. Yoshinobu Yamamoto was not that great right out of the gate last year for the Dodgers. But Ohtani coming back to pitch, assuming all those guys stay healthy. Look what the Dodgers have done with their bullpen, too. Well, it's not just starting where the bullpen's much better than it was last season. The lineup is almost bulletproof. I'm going to say Dodgers, again, over or pass. I'm not betting it under. I'm not going to sit there all summer rooting for the Dodgers to lose, betting them under 103.5 or whatever it is, thinking I got to root against the Dodgers tonight because I need this under. I can see the Dodgers winning 108 games. I'm going to go 107, 108. What do you think?
That's about the number. I was going to say 106, 106, 107. It's the thing with betting the over. You don't have that much wiggle room. It's not like you have that much margin for error. But I mean, you really want to be sitting there on June 16th rooting for Colorado to beat them or something. Like they're gonna steamroll these teams. They have such an embarrassment of riches. I don't even know how you whittle it down to 5. I know they had a bunch of injuries last year, and that always creeps up. But they've got like a dozen starting pitchers. It's just it's a joke at this point.
It is a joke. But hey, give the Dodgers credit. They're going out spending the money and being aggressive. I know those are the things you want the Yankees to do.
100%. Final thought here on the Yankees offseason and anything else baseball related, any baseball bets you're looking to make here in the next couple months.
Well, when the Yankees lost out in the Juan Soto sweepstakes, and they made a much more aggressive bid for Soto than I thought they would. You were right about that. You said that Hal was going to make a big push for Soto. Came up short. I always thought Soto kind of wanted to play for the Mets. He kind of wanted to be his own star, maybe outside of Judge's shadow, and have the Mets, be his team. But anyway, aside from Soto leaving, I think the Yankees have actually had a decent offseason. I kind of like some of the things they've done. Don't love it, but I like it enough to where I think the Yankees are still going to contend and be in there. Padres really faded, right? Padres you could have made a case at the end of last season that the Padres were the number 2 team in baseball. They had the Dodgers down in a series, backed into a corner, that close to knocking out the Dodgers, and they couldn't deliver the knockout punch. And the way the World Series went, there were a lot of people arguing, hey, the Padres were number 2, Yankees were number 3. But I think the Padres have really faded, and it looks like Dodgers are just going to run away with that division. That's a prop that should be up by how many games will the Dodgers win the NL West? Other than that, I'm not crazy about anything that I've seen in the offseason. I just think the Yankees have done enough that I like it, and they're going to stay competitive.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
What would you say about the Yankees right now?
I think, it's a bitter pill to swallow to lose Soto, and watching, just from a fan standpoint, watching Judge and Soto back to back every night, man. It's a long baseball season. It was so much fun to watch. They were such a perfect complement to each other. I'm going to miss that. But once you have to accept the fact that he's not on the team anymore, they've recovered about as well as you possibly can. We'll see what Goldschmidt has left. We'll see if Bellinger can give him something. But I really like the back of the bullpen. I think when you can line up Weaver and Devin Williams and this other kid Cruz strikes out a lot of guys, you can build a team around pitching and no Gleyber Torres anymore. So maybe you can be better defensively. You add Max Fried. I think they not quite as good as last year. Maybe not as fun to watch, but I do think the American League's not that good. So they'll be in the mix, I would think, next year.
Yeah, I think so too. All right.
Appreciate it, man. So we're about halfway between fast food rankings last year and this year. Anything rising, falling?
Oh no, I don't even think about that.
Okay.
I don't even think about that stuff till the middle of the summer.
Okay.
It's you got my I spent 4 hours overnight working on college hoops and all sorts of things, and I don't even fast food's part of my life. Well, it's not a hobby. It's like when I leave here today, I'll probably stop at 3 more fast food places before I get home again later tonight. But I don't think about the rankings. Bojangles, that's a big thing in Vegas right now. Bojangles opened its new location today. That's a huge chicken franchise, and it's very popular in the South. Just opened its first location in Vegas today or yesterday, whatever it was. But it's so crowded right now. I'm not going to go for a couple days. But that's it. The McRib is here and gone, and that's sad. But at least the McRib did come back. Paulie Howard tried to tell me the McRib was not going to come back. It was going to be discontinued. I said it will never be discontinued. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the fear mongering. The McRib is never going away. By the way, your kids, and you brought them out to Vegas last time I saw them a couple of years ago. They like fast food. What are your kids' like 3 favorite fast food joints?
Their McDonald's is one for them.
Okay.
McDonald's.
See, when I rank McDonald's like number 5, I get a lot of people upset. McDonald's is terrible. Hey, look, it's the world's number 1 fast food chain and revenue for a reason. People do like McDonald's, right?
People like McDonald's. We have a Duchess around here that's popular. Wendy's has a good breakfast. So
Wendy's is very good.
Wendy's has a very good breakfast too. And plus, those 2 for $3 meals, the 2 for $3 in the morning, we get the bacon, egg, and cheese. You get they call them seasoned potatoes, but they're really just fries. But Wendy's has a good breakfast.
Do you ever take your kids to DQ?
For ice cream occasionally, yeah.
So DQ has a great $7 meal deal. This is great if you got kids. You can take them there and get it like a hamburger or a hot dog, fries, a drink, and a sundae for $7. That's a great deal if you got kids. Yeah,
that is a hell of a deal. Yeah. That is a value play right there. Plus EV.
Yep.
All right, Matt. VSiN.com, VSiN Primetime. Where can people find you?
VSiN.com. That's it, man. We'll be on 4 to 8 p.m. Pacific time, Monday through Friday nights. We'll catch you on VSiN on the weekends, and looking forward to March Madness. I know the Super Bowl is such a huge event, and it's a little bit depressing when football season ends. But you and I and a bunch of other guys at the network really love college hoops, so we got that to look forward to. So got to ramp up your college basketball betting right now. If you're somebody who's been playing football and not paying attention to college hoops, now you got to jump into college hoops.
All right, Matt. Appreciate the time, man. Thanks.
You bet. Thanks, man.
All right. Rate, review, subscribe. Thank you to Matt Youmans. We will be back Friday with a full breakdown, full preview of both NFC and AFC title games. We will get down to a Super Bowl this weekend. So only a few games left. Got to enjoy them. See you Friday.